Okay. So let's wait for the remaining two of us. Okay. Let's wait for Mr. Okay. Yeah. We are all back. So let me share my screen with us. I'll be using my VS Code and also my and also my Visual Studio today to explain things to us. So let me share my screen. Let me start with my VS Code first. Okay. Okay. So can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. So now when we talk about collections, when we talk about collections in okay, coming. Okay. When we talk about collections in C sharp, somebody put something on the chat. Please, can somebody help me check it?
It was just a response to your question when you asked if what's it called, your screen is visible.
Okay. So now, when we talk about collections in C sharp, there are two types of collections. There's what we call generic collections, and there's what we call non-generic collections, and they differs, and there are ways they differs. Now, when you talk about non-generic collections, now I was explaining the other time that collection is like just normal collection, like list of something, like, but you want a particular variable to undo the collection. You want a particular variable to house everything. So take for example, in this case now, I have Pelumi, I have 43, I have 2.90. Now Pelumi is a string, 43 is an integer, 2.89 is a double. But I want to store all these values, everything all together. I want to store them in a particular variable. And how is that possible? That brings us the concept of non-generic collections. Non-generic collections. That means you can store different types, different data types, different types of values. You can store them in a particular variable. And there are different types of non-generic collections. There are four basic ones. There is array list, there is stack, there is queue, and there is hash table. There's array list, there is stack, there is queue, and there is hash table. Normally if you want to create our variable, we always use this way. We say int, let's say int a equals 56, and then we've assigned 56 to a. But now if you want to create a collection, if you want to create a collection, it's very different. You do it as if you are creating an object, because it's actually an object. You are creating an instance of a class, so they belong to a particular library. So now if you are creating, it's different from the way you declare integer a equals 56. Now if you look at the first line, if you look at the first line, let me comment this out. You can see public array list, my array list equals new array list. Then this is the way you create an object from a class. I believe we are familiar with that, right? Hello, response. I believe we are familiar with that.
Yes.
Okay, so now just picture it as if you are creating an instance. So in this case now, array list is the class. So you are creating an instance of it. So it gives you access to it. But in this concept now is a collection. It's a collection. So the name of this collection now is my R list. My R list. That's the name of this collection. So I can actually add value to it. So now what I did there was that I created a class called non-generic collection. I created a class called non-generic collection. I created a field, and I declared it my OOL list, but there's nothing in that OOL list, then I created a method. I created a method called add my OOL list. We are familiar with this. This is just a method. It's nothing strange. So what do I do inside that method? I add. So this is how you add value to that list. So my OOL list dot add in brackets whatsoever you want to add to that list. So now I now created another method to get the complete list. And I created a method to get the complete. So when I return, when this get list example now, it returns so it will have added. So if I've called this method, it will have added all this to it. So now what makes this non-generic is because you can add different types of data types into a particular list. While generic collection is a situation whereby you can only add a particular type of data type. So let me give an example of generic so that we can juxtapose between the two of them. So this is an example of generic connection. But as you can see, I declared just like I declared that. But inside this, I already told list, young man, I was in that data type. You can't, the other one, we added we added 34, we added 2 point something. So that one is non-generic. That one collects anything. But about generic collection, it has a particular type already defined, a type already defined. It has it. So that's the concept of generic and non-generic. So there are different types. So the generic collection, we have list is one of them. Then we have dictionary. Dictionary is one of them. I'll come and explain dictionary. Then we have Q. Q is one of them. You can see Q now. So if you can see those, I declared those guys. I actually know the data type I will be collecting. I define it at the point of declaration. I made it known. I'm collecting it here. So I didn't mean it's string I'm collecting. I'll put it inside here to be string. And I'll say Q string. So now the other types, there's sorted list, there's hash table, there's hash table, and there's linked list. So now, and stack also. Stack is one of them. So as you can see the example, it doesn't matter the type of data to it. It's to collect it as a collection. Then we have hash table. So now we have hash table. This hash table now is not generic, non-generic. Then also there are other ones. There is okay, actually there are only 4 non-generic. Therefore, the array list, the stack, the queue, and hash table. So now in under list, this is where you add to delete. Use the name of the variable, the array list dot add, and in bracket you put whatever you want to add. Which you can see here. And for the stack now, there's a way stack works. Stack works with first in, last out. Imagine imagine you arranging your clothes. You're arranging your clothes. Then I say, Mr. Timileyin, give me the red one. It gives me. I put it at the bottom of my traveling bag. Then I collected another one from Mr. Adele. I put it on top. I collected another one from Mr. Joseph. I put it on top. I collected another one from Mr. Put it on top. Now that's the concept of stack. I stack those two together. Now, if I now want to collect, I need to collect the one from Miss Goodness first before I can collect the one that belongs to Mr. Timileyin. So now, first in, last out. So you stack it. So now, why do you stack now? If the array list is just the details, the values you want to add together. Then stack, don't use add. You use push, like the cost of push. You push something, you push it to it. Then as you can see the implementation of non-generic. You can push different types together. You can push it. So now, if I want to get the topmost, now there's no way I can get the one at the middle. So the only way to get is to pop. Now when you pop, the one at the topmost will come out first. The one at the topmost will come out first. So there are different areas when you start implementing whichever session you will going into. You will see them apply some of the technology. So having gotten basic understanding of it, you understand what you're trying to do. So you add it by using the word push, and the method push. Then you get the one that is on the topmost. So that's what it means by first in, last out. Then hash table. What is hash table? Now get the concept of dictionary. Now it's just a photocopy of it in another way entirely. Now hash table, it works with the concept of keys and values. Now as this example I made out. So now you can actually create an hash table also. The name of the variable is HTTPL. Then now, as you can see now, this one is a dictionary itself. This one is a dictionary itself. So the difference between the dictionary, so you can only add this value. This is value. This is it. So if you want to get value, you access the value using the key. So now this is this is a key, and this is a value. This is a key, this is a value. So in this case now, you use add. You use add. So but when you're adding, you either add. These are the various ways to add. These are the various ways to add. So that's non-generic. I'm talking about list. Okay, about this is use add to add. But when talking about generic, you already have a data type set for it. So you cannot violate that rule. You can only put in this case now, you've said, okay, I'm collecting list of integer. So you must be a particular list of integer. So now the concept of generic collections help you to put some things into order. Now, you don't have to, maybe you ask someone to enter a particular detail, and you don't have to be converting it to the desired data type. No, just already defined it. This is the data type I'm working with. So if you don't conform with that, you cannot be added to the list. Simple as ABC. So the concept of dictionary is also the same thing with hash table. So the difference between hash table and dictionary is hash table will never allow you to enter, to have a key of the same type, it's going to complain. So now this dictionary, now this I declare the same way. Dictionary, then this is the key, and declare the value, the data type of the value. So this is only, you can see now, it's only 5, 6. So it must follow that formula. The key must follow that, obey that instruction. That define is to obey that instruction. And the other one is queue. So the queue is the opposite of stack. Queue is the opposite of stack. Just like when you're on a queue now, it's the person that is at the front that will be attended to first. So first in, first out. So it's the opposite of stack. So stack is first in, last out, but queue is first in, first out. So now in the concept of queue here now, in other generic collection, very clear it. So now, but you add value to as queue is when you enqueue. That means you are adding that value to the queue. Then when you dequeue, you are removing that thing from that queue. So we'll go straight to some the implementation of this example. I'll leave them to just save time for today to avoid some things that happened last week with us. So now I want to welcome questions before we start playing with examples. Before we do question. Question. Oh, someone is gone. Okay, Miss Goodness is gone. Okay, so any question, please?
Please, which one is the most used?
Okay, now it depends on what you are doing. It depends on what you are doing. So you may actually write a program, and like the project I've done so far, I've only used dictionary and list. Like of all the projects I've been doing so far, I've only made use of those. And it depends on what you are solving. So if the problem you are solving warrants that you make use of stack, I want us to think and see applications. There are examples that we actually need to make use of some of these things. So the list and dictionaries often made use of, but those remaining ones, they have their applications also. So it's important to also know it, so that when we are trying to, programming is there's no a straight way. There's no a straight way in programming. There are different ways. We can solve questions in different ways. So I can use maybe 10 lines to solve this. You can use 5 lines to solve this, and it will solve the same thing. So I wouldn't say this is the one you should master. No, know everything so that you can apply any of them when you are working. So any other question? No question. Okay, so let's see. Let's try and implement some of them. So I will close my Visual Studio and close my VS Code, and I'll move to my Visual Studio. So okay, so that to save memory, let me close my VS Code. Then let me close Slack. Okay, and coming. Trying to save memory, because Visual Studio consumes a lot of memory, so that there won't be any hindrance while we are working. So, okay, so I'll have my Visual Studio and Zoom on now. So let's start playing around those examples. Okay, so what we have here is, we are familiar with class. I created the class. I was the one who created the class. So now if you want to make use of collections, make sure you declare using system.collections.generic. No, you may not even put it generic. Just put using system.collections. So like, okay, it's requiring for generic. Dot generic. Okay. For the generic ones, while for the non-generics, using system.collections is okay. You don't need, it's not a generic. It's actually all of them inside the collection. So now, I have this field called my list. So I created a method to help me add these values into my list. Then I created a method if I want to collect the list. Then I created a field called my dict. That's my dictionary. I created a new dictionary. Create a dictionary. Then I added, now in this case now, the key here is 2. Then the value is Sholakwe. So I was able to do this because I've already declared my dict. I've already declared it to be a dictionary. Why is it giving me that? I'm coming into docs. Okay, so let me see where I implemented this. I don't know why it's complaining that. Okay, so what I did was that I created an instance of generic collections. As you can see, it's just a class I created. I created that class. I want to address this particular issue. It's complaining represent a strongly typed list. Type could not be found in a dictionary. Okay. Let me get the. Okay, that addresses it. Okay, so now what I did was that I created an instance, I created an object of this class. So we all understand that. So by doing that, I have access to all of this. So now what I did first was that my generic, that's the name I gave the object, dot add my list example. So I called this method. So what does this method do? So this is the method now. So that's the method that will help me add these values to it. So I can, okay, let's do that for now. Then what next did I do? I created a new list. As you can see here now, normally if you want to create a variable, we'll have said maybe int or double. So, but in this case now, if you are creating a list, then, so now, normally my generic gets my example method, which is this. Now, it has a return type. Please take note, it has a return type. I explain, we understand the concept of methods. Now, this return type is not void. It's not that this one is returning something. And what is this one returning? It's returning list of integer, which is what my list, which is the property of my list. So what I'm returning is, I'm returning this, but I need to tell the method that will return this that this is the data type you are returning. So as you can see, the application of return type now. So it's not all methods that return void. So this particular method is returning list. So you can see the power of collection. You can, initially we're used to int, double, it return integer, it return double. No, this one is returning a whole list. So now, what I did here was that I created an instance of this class. Then I called this method so that it can help me add these values to my list. And when it does that, I called this method. So what does this method do? It returns this. It returns my list. So, and it stores it into a new, I created a new list here, and it returns it. So now I now want to print every value inside that list. So it's a list, like you can't just print it as it is. So I want to print each of the values inside. So I made use of for each. So we are familiar with for each. So I made use of for each. So I did for each value, so for each then var item in what? In the list that has been returned. Then console write line, that means print each of the value inside of it. So let me just quickly run that so that we can see. Oh, I didn't put console the root key. So any question? Any question? We'll still play much more around it. But any question? No question? Wow, that's surprising. So, someone
I'm still
says,
trying to understand
okay.
the concept.
Huh?
I'm still trying to understand the concept.
Which aspect of it? Mr. Joseph, which aspect of it?
I'm still trying to understand the concept, but for now, I don't have any question.
Okay. When you say the concept, do you mean the concept of collections or the concept of what I wrote?
I understand collections. But
Okay.
I'm just trying to look at how everything is going. You know, you are switching through different tabs, so sometimes following through is not so
Okay.
switching from generic to collection to programs. So
Okay. Okay. Sorry. Okay. For now, we are doing generic. For now, we are doing generic. But do you understand what is presently on the links on the program class? I created an instance of generic collection. Then I called the method called add list examples, which is what we have here. I wanted to add these values to the list I've already declared. Then I also called a particular method called get my list example. So to call this particular method, and what does the method does? The method return my list. And what is my list? This. And what is this? This are already been called to, values are already been added to it. So when it's now calling it here now, it's not returning an empty list, it's returning a loaded list. So I had to tell my method here that this is the data type of what you are returning. You are returning a list of integer. So now when I created an object and I call this one add the values. When I call this one return list. And when you return list, the list is stored inside what I have here. And so I treated over what is being returned, and I want to print each of the value inside of it. So let me run it again. Let me build it first. Build solution.
okay, please. Yeah, you use them list of my list. I wanted to ask that is it compulsory to use my list, or you could use another variable name?
No, I can use another variable name. I just wanted
Okay.
something that is I will get
Consistent though.
exactly.
Okay, I get.
So let me share the output with us. Thank God my system is responding well today. Someone must have prayed though. Okay, so can you see the output?
Yes, I can see your output.
Okay, you can see 34, 43, 23, 53. So that is responding to that. So let's still play around it. Now uh, uh, I'm expecting someone to ask me a question, but no problem. Now,
I can't see your screen again.
okay, I'm sharing it again now.
Yeah, it's back now.
Okay. Now, why, since I've actually declared my list here to be a public, the access modifier is a public. and I've already created an instance of this. That means I can actually eradicate this. I don't know if we get, I can actually eradicate this. And here now, I will just do my generic. I will iterate my generic dot my list. Do we get what I did?
No, I didn't get what you did now.
Okay, you know, my list here is actually part of this class, right? Hello, are we together?
Yeah, yeah.
It's actually part of this class. Now, I've called a method to add these values to my list. Definitely, this list will get updated. So now, that means I don't need this method. Since I've actually, if you see where I implemented this now, I created an object of that class and I called the method add my list example. Now, by calling that method, it automatically added those values to the variable called my list. Now, so that means since I've actually created an object of it, I also have access to my list. Since my list is public, you understand? So now I actually made use of it here now. So instead of me saying, instead of me calling the get method to send me the list again, since my list has been declared to be public over there, so through this object, I can actually have access to it. So that was what I did here now. So do we get?
So we can go back to the generic collections.
Okay.
My gener- Okay, okay. So the reason why you're using them dot my list is because it's like my list is like a method here or something, or it's like a field or something.
Exactly, it's a feed there. So, and since I've created an instance of my generic collections here, I also have access to it. I also have access to it. But assuming
Yeah.
assuming I was trying to print my list before I add those values here, then they would tell me there's no value inside my list at all. So this I need to call this method add to it first before I call this. So that's how we can work around list. So any question with list?
Okay, I'm fine with list. I'm okay with list.
Okay, so let's go to the next one. Let's look at dictionary. So now this is dictionary, and this is how you declare it. Dictionary has a key and it has a value. So the key in this case now is integer. The value here is a string. So that has been declared. So anytime and there are different ways you can actually declare your dictionary. So now you can declare it using this way. The name of my dictionary is my dict. Then the key here is 2. Then the value I assigned to it is Sholakwe. So it obeyed the structure I've given it. So imagine if I come here and I say, and I try to give the value of, let's say, an integer, it's actually going to complain because that's not the format that has been given to it to obey. So in this case now, the key here is 2, the value here is Sholakwe. Then you can also use this method also, my dict.add, to add the key and the value also together. So now let's do the same thing here. So now we've already created an instance of this class. Then in this case now, let us add values to my dict. So my dict add, add my dictionary. So I call that will add to the dictionary. Then now, if we want to iterate over it, so let me my dictionary. dot my dict and item. So now, as you can see, let's say I want to print all the values now. So now, in this case now, you see the other time we only printed the item, but dictionary has a key and a value. So if it is key you want to print or it is the value you want to print. And the concept of key and value is you use the key to access the value. So imagine the implementation, the concept of, imagine you have student ID, no, you have student matric number and you have their CGPA. So you can actually put the two inside a dictionary. You can make them, so that means maybe the matric number and the CGPA. So in such case now, I will declare dictionary of strings, comma, double, strings, comma, double. So now it's like collection is very powerful. So instead of me just having scattered data sets, I can actually arrange them in that sense. So that means I can access your matric, your CGPA using your matric number. So, and even if I want to print all the CGPA, I can actually do that with what I just did here. If I want to print all the matric number, I can actually do that without I can change it here. That will be item.key. Item.key. So, but in this case now, I want to print all the values. So that's how dictionary works. So let me print our output. So does anyone have any question? Any questions? So let me share the screen with us so that we can see the output. So you can see the output now. The output is only the value because that was what I told it to print out. That was what I told it to print out. So that's concerning dictionary. So let's look at okay, we have 4 minutes left for this section. So I would not want us to have a third section because of our time. So I will push the code to the GitHub. Then I will also send the recorded section also to the YouTube channel. So but I'll use the remaining few minutes to look at array. So let me just, in this case now, let me create non-generic. So I also created a class for it, non-generic collections, that's the name of the class. Then what are the methods there? So I have add my array list. So to add my array list, then okay, add my array list, then I want it to print the value inside. So let me call this my non-generic. So now it's left for us to go and start playing around it. So it's just the same way. I've already written the method there too. So and you can even try and play around this code to practice the assignment that is being given. So you can play around various OOP using this. So this, I'm actually implementing the non-generic here now. So as you can see, we are familiar with, from the explanation I gave, the difference is just that for the non-generic, you don't have to declare if you're actually working with integer straight. No, you can add as many different data types you want to add to it. And the concept of stack is also an example of non-generic. You don't use add, use push and pop. Use push to add to it, then use pop to pop the one that is on the top most. So there's a comment there, first in, last out. So when you fork the code, you also be seeing it there. Then the concept of hash table also, it uses keys and values also, but you don't have to strictly define the data type of the key or the value. So that's just that. I believe we've done a lot for today. So in the next 2 minutes, does anyone has any question? So I'll push the code now to the repo. So for those that have forked it, you will see it. Then I've sent the link to the assignment to the Slack channel. So I'll be expecting so much questions from our readings from OOP. So if you guys can actually understand OOP very well, and with all that we've done, you are good to go to start learning any technology. Maybe you want to start desktop, Windows, or web with C#. So any question in 2 minutes? Does anyone have any question?
So my question is, for this, sorry, like my question is, for this program that is on screen, can we not run a program that will print both value and the item?
Okay, for the dictionary, right?
Yes.
Yes, we can. For the dictionary, okay, for the dictionary, what you just have to do, in the case of dictionary, we did item.value, right?
I mean the item and the value. Can we not print the two together to show on the output screen?
Okay, everything, right?
Yes, everything.
Okay, yes, it's very possible. Let me try and do that. Console.writeline. Let me be fast. My array list. Array list. Okay, so don't let me use for each in this case. Let me comment this out. Then let me run. So this is an array list now. It will print out everything for us. Fast. Coming. Hope you won't mind some little addition of time if you create another section. I'm trying to rush through a lot, and it's less than a minute. Hello, are we together?
Yes, I'm.
Okay, so can we create an additional section?